Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Sean, and today we are talking about Distilled the Cocktails expansion. And this is a paid preview, so we're not going to be giving our opinions here. We're going to be talking about the nuts and bolts, what all comes in the box.
And the Cocktails expansion is designed by Dave Beck and Richard Woods. And this is a prototype, so a lot of what you see is subject to change. And because it's an expansion, we're not going to be doing a full how to play. We'll dive right into what's in the box.
So we're going to get to those cocktails in just a second, but first of all, I want to talk about the second washback board, because that is one of the physically largest parts in this box. So you've got a second washback board. So already you've got your player board. And then on the right side of that, you're going to add another little mini board. And that is going to let you mix 2 cocktails in a turn. So that looks a lot like your first washback board. It's got places for those 3 different types of ingredients. You're going to have to put all 3 types of ingredients there in order to make a second spirit, but you can't always use that. So at the start of the game, that is locked. And then during the market phase, you can spend money, if you want, to move down this washback track. And that is going to get more expensive as it goes. So it's going to start at like $2, I think, and then it's going to go up to $4, and then it's going to raise pretty quickly. It gets steep by the end of that. So you're not going to be able to do that every round.
Yeah, it can get pricey, but if you have a whole bunch of ingredients where you are able to make 2 spirits, then that's almost like doing 2 rounds in one. And it can be beneficial if you're aging one of those spirits and then selling the other one right away, because then you're still able to get income in a round in which you're aging a spirit.
Yeah, and that does make a difference, because originally you would have to just age that spirit. You wouldn't get any money unless you move back points to get money, which is a tough thing to have to do. So now you can plan ahead, age that spirit, make another thing, at least get a little bit of money and a couple of points and kind of move ahead. But like you said, you do need to have enough ingredients to make both of those things. So you do have to kind of plan ahead for it a little bit, but it does give you an option that you didn't have in the first game, and that I think a lot of people were calling for.
Yeah, and you get an extra spirit label as well, and getting the bonuses from those spirit labels also gives you more things, and so you're generally just able to do more.
So I did say that the washback board looks a lot like the first washback, but there is one important distinction, and that is that there's space for 2 cocktail cards. And the cocktails obviously are the biggest part of this expansion. So there is a board that is going to have a bunch of cocktail cards on it. I think there's always going to be 4 available that you can buy and add to that second washback, which is actually called your distillery expansion board. And the real reason for that is that that is your distillery. So this is, if you can picture it like most distilleries that you see out in the world, there's always somewhere with a little bar where they're going to serve the drinks that they make in the distillery. That's what this adds.
Yeah, and so during the market phase, you can purchase a cocktail card to add it. You only have space for 2 cocktail cards at a time, and you can also purchase mixers, because in order to make your cocktails, you're going to need a few different things. One of them is you will need a spirit that corresponds to what that cocktail needs, and you already have to have that label available. And you're going to need certain mixers. And so those are things like cherries and ice cubes and all kinds of different stuff. And so you're able to purchase those ingredients, but there is a whole other additional phase that happens after the distilling phase. That's now the cocktail phase.
Yes, and those ingredients come both in, you can purchase those separately, but also whenever you buy one of those cocktails, you also get a number of ingredients equal to whatever it is you paid. So if you buy a more expensive one, it's more expensive, but you're getting 4 ingredients for taking that. So it can be worth spending that money. But the other part that you were talking about is when you actually serve somebody that cocktail, you get to add these tokens to this world map board. And that is going to get you, first of all, immediate things for everything that you've put on. Also, it is going to possibly get you these bonus tiles that are all over this map board. So if you have your tokens in 2 different adjacent continents, then you can get the bonus tile that connects those two continents, but only if you've got one of your spirit labels on this top little board that we haven't talked about yet that goes above your distillery. And then that gives you this option to get these other special labels that give you, the ones from this board all give you instant bonuses.
Yeah, the immediate tiles can be helpful, but even immediately when you put out your renown tokens on the map, if you're the first one to go to a space, there's a little bonus that you get. And the bonus might be an umbrella, which it can be any ingredient. It could be being able to get ingredients for your pantries. So there is motivation in trying to serve cocktails early to be able to get those bonuses.
And there's also motivation for the end of the game because those are going to give you points. So you get 3 points if you have 6 of your tokens in any one region. You also are going to get points if you've got tokens in every region, and you can do that multiple times as well. And at the end of the game, one of the biggest things you're going to get is every time you serve a cocktail, and we didn't actually talk about this, every time you serve a cocktail, you're going to get a special little glass token. And those are like nice little chunky wooden tokens. You're going to get this little glass token that you're going to put on top of whatever the recipe is that you served. And so at the end of the game, you want to have different ones of those. And you're going to multiply how many different types of cocktails you served by how many spaces you cleared off on your little like renown board. So as you take off tokens, you're going to empty these spaces every 4th token, I think. So if you've managed to put out 12 tokens, you're going to get to score, I think it's 4 points because you start with 1, multiplied by whatever you've got. So you could get like 16 points for doing that. That's worth a lot of points at the end of the game.
Yeah, and also there are the shared goals and personal goals that now have cocktail expansions factored in. So you might get additional points if you've got a card that requires you to have the most tokens in Asia, for example, or if you're both racing to get one of each of the different types of glasses. So it does add additional goal types.
And another way that you're going to be able to score points is with these new collector cards. And so there are 4 cards that you're going to use out of a possible 8, and each one of those have 2 things that they want. And all of those are connected to the quality of whatever it is that you just distilled. And so they'll generally want a either bronze, silver, or gold recipe, or sometimes a signature recipe. And then you're going to need to score a certain amount of points in order to take their endgame tile. And so each one of them has 2 of these endgame tiles. When you distill whatever recipe it is, you're going to put that token on that top little board, and then you're going to take their token, put that next to that. At the end of the game, you'll score those points based on that multiplier.
Yeah, and so if there is a particular goal that you are gunning for that you can only get through the collectors, that might motivate you to do a specific recipe. And having that spirit label board that goes above is necessary because you are making more spirits with the second washback. So now you are able to put a spirit label on that board for either the collector bonus or the immediate world bonus to give you a few more options of what to do with your spirit label.
There are also a whole bunch of new cards. So first of all, there are 4 new distillery owners, including one from Romania who looks a lot like a vampire, who's probably my favorite. I know we're not supposed to give opinions in this, but come on. And then also there are just a bunch of other cards. There's 3 different kinds of ingredients that are added here. There are a bunch of different items, including a bunch of new bottles. There are also different upgrades that you can add to your warehouse.
Yeah, and some of those cards do tie specifically to the cocktail's expansion. So the different distillery owners you can get, often their bonuses are related to the cocktail's expansion. And same with the distillery upgrades. It might give you bonuses that tie into that. The other thing on the cards is a lot of these new cards, or at least some of them, have a forklift icon. And what the forklift icon does is if you are discarding a card with that icon, you have to discard an additional card. And so at 2 players, you're normally getting rid of 2 cards, but if one of those has a forklift, you're now getting rid of 3 cards. So the market is turning over a little bit more.
Yeah, and they had the same thing in Ark Nova, in the Ark Nova Marine expansion. It does work quite well, although in both we do miss it a lot, but if you don't miss it, it does move that market quite a bit faster. There are also a bunch of cards that replace older cards as well. A lot of that is more to do with the wording. So a lot of those older cards didn't really take into account that maybe you could have 2 drinks. So now they specify either that you can do it with both things that you're making or that you can only do it with one of the 2. I think there may be a couple too that either nerf or buff it, but I think it's mostly just that slight different wording, and that is with a few of the different distillery owners and then a few of the different upgrades.
There are also 5 new metal barrel cards, and that's just so that every player can start the game with 2 so that you're able to distill 2 spirits if you need to.
So again, this is a paid preview, so we're not going to give opinions in the final thoughts here, but a few of the things that this expansion really seems to be wanting to address is, first of all, it does add more complexity to the game. So if one of the things that maybe was a question for you in the original Distilled was it seemed a little bit too light, this does add more complexity.
Yeah, it does add complexity because it's adding layers to your decision making. For when you make a spirit and you're getting your label, now you're also factoring in, is that label able to go into a cocktail? And if you are able to make a cocktail in a whole nother round, then you're able to put out renown tokens on a world map. And when you're putting those out, you might be thinking about the immediate bonuses you want, or even long-term with like what goals you might be trying to get as well. So there is a lot more that you're considering for which spirit you might choose to make.
Yeah, there's kind of like another 3 or 4 layers to that decision now. And thematically, you now actually have a distillery where you are selling things, and that does make it so that you've got another way that you are spending money as well. Sometimes also where you're bringing in money through those immediate bonuses or those continent bonuses, or also those collectors, although they're not necessarily part of the cocktail part of the game, but you have to spend that money on making sure that you have those ingredients because you're thinking about that. So now you've got ingredients for both the different spirits that you're making and for the different cocktails that you're serving.
Yeah, so money is still very tight, but you are doing more, but you're also spending more. And with all of these additions, it does mean it also has a larger footprint.
Yeah, this is now a bit of a table hog, and because there is that added complexity, it is also going to add a bit to the game time as well.
So this expansion is a big box expansion. It adds more cards, it adds more distillery owners, but it also adds like new mechanics, new phases, and additional layers.
And that is it. That is Distilled Cocktails. And again, this was a paid preview, and these are early components. So a lot of this stuff might change.
Thank you so much for watching. As usual, please like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.